Elon Musk's xAI is hemorrhaging money like never before. It lost $2.4 billion in the first 3 months of 2026 alone. But here's the twist. The same filing that exposed the losses also revealed xAI is renting computing power to Anthropic, its fiercest competitor, for $1.25 billion every single month. That's right, the company that's burning billions is also making a fortune by leasing servers to the company trying to beat it. This isn't just a weird detail buried in paperwork. It exposes the entire hidden economics of the AI arms race, where even rival labs depend on each other to survive, where money moves in ways that seem almost backwards, and where the real prize isn't just being smart, it's controlling enough compute to stay in the game. When a filing this big lands, it usually confirms what insiders already suspected. But this one, it flips the script. SpaceX's SEC filing on xAI pulled back the curtain on an industry that looks way more fragile and interconnected than the headlines suggest. If you've been wondering why AI companies are burning so much cash, why even the richest labs are desperate for more compute, and why Elon's bets aren't always obvious, this is the story that explains everything, and it's weirder than you'd think. To understand why xAI is spending like this, you need to know Elon Musk's master plan. He didn't start xAI just to build another chatbot. He launched it in 2023 as the foundation for something much bigger, a company that could rival OpenAI and Google in the race to build artificial general intelligence, the kind of AI that could eventually match or exceed human thinking across nearly any domain. Elon has a history of betting everything on moonshots. Tesla revolutionized electric cars. SpaceX figured out how to land rockets. Now he's betting that xAI can do the same for AI, break through the limitations of existing models, compete directly with industry leaders, and maybe even own the future of AI itself. The problem is, this race is incredibly expensive. OpenAI is backed by Microsoft with hundreds of billions in spending. Google has almost unlimited resources. Anthropic has billions from Amazon and Google's parent Alphabet. To even enter this game, xAI needs to build or rent massive amounts of compute capacity, the GPUs, data centers, and power infrastructure that train these giant models. That's why Elon's burning through billions. Every dollar is a bet that xAI will crack something none of the others have. But as the filing shows, that bet is already costing way more than anyone publicly admitted. Let's talk about the actual numbers, because they are staggering. In Q1 2026, xAI spent $7.7 billion on capital expenditure. Think of that as money spent on building infrastructure, data centers, power systems, GPUs, everything needed to run AI. $7.7 billion in a single quarter. That's roughly $308 billion a year if they maintain that pace. For context, that's more than some countries spend on their entire military. At the same time, xAI lost $2.4 billion in the same quarter. That's the operating loss, the amount by which their spending exceeded their revenue. So they're burning through investor money like a rocket burning fuel, and that fuel is the compute needed to train better models. Here's the thing that makes this make sense. They're not just spending for internal research. They're also spending on something specific that came out in this filing. Part of their infrastructure is now rented out, which is why the Anthropic deal is so important. They built so much compute that they can monetize the excess, but even with that income stream, they're still losing billions. It shows you how expensive this really is. Even when you're profiting from a rival, you're still in the red. That's the arms race in its purest form. Now let's put $1.25 billion per month into perspective, because it's genuinely massive. That monthly sum from Anthropic is about $15 billion per year in a single contract. If xAI signed similar deals with just 2 other labs, they'd be generating $45 billion annually in compute rental revenue alone, enough to offset a huge chunk of their operating losses. To put it another way, $1.25 billion a month is roughly the annual operating budget of thousands of mid-sized tech companies. It's more than the GDP of several small nations. It's what some of the largest universities on Earth spend in a year. And that's just for 300 megawatts of compute capacity being sold to one customer for 1 month. Here's the real kicker. This deal runs through May 2029, which means Anthropic is locked into paying xAI $1.25 billion every single month for the next 3 years. That's approximately $45 billion total, assuming nothing changes. For xAI, that's a massive revenue stream that props up their losses. For Anthropic, it means they don't need to build all that infrastructure themselves. They can rent it and focus on training better models. It's a symbiotic relationship between two companies that are technically fighting for dominance. Both need compute more than they need to beat the other, and that's what this filing really reveals. So how does this compare to the rest of the AI industry? Well, OpenAI doesn't disclose detailed financials like this, but public reports suggest they are burning through billions too. They've raised over $100 billion in funding, and they're spending aggressively to stay ahead. Google is burning billions on AI through Google DeepMind and their cloud business, but they've got advertising revenue to offset those losses. Microsoft is spending tens of billions, but again, they have revenue to cushion the blow. Anthropic is probably closest to xAI's situation. They're burning through capital raised from venture investors and their new Amazon deal, and now they're paying xAI $15 billion per year just to access compute. That means they're not profitable either. The whole industry is in this weird state where profitability is almost a secondary concern. Every lab is spending whatever it takes to avoid falling behind in the race for better AI. The difference with xAI is they've figured out how to monetize their infrastructure before even having profitable products. They're betting that by owning the compute, they can make money from their competition, not just from their own AI models. It's a different business model than the others. Whether it works long-term depends on whether they can actually build something better. And that's the stakes we are really talking about. Here's what this filing actually means for the future of AI. First, it confirms that the AI arms race is real and it's brutal. No one can win by being slightly smarter. You have to own the compute to stay relevant. That explains why Elon bought Tesla's power infrastructure, why he's obsessed with nuclear energy, and why every AI company is desperate to secure GPUs. Compute isn't just a tool, it's the fundamental constraint. Whoever controls enough compute controls the future. Second, this reveals the industry is more fragile than it looks. Even companies with billions in funding are losing money on their core operations. They are surviving on venture capital and strategic partnerships. One bad quarter, one failed chip design, one major security breach, and the whole structure could change. The Anthropic deal shows how interdependent they've become. They're betting on each other not to fail. Third, this points to likely consolidation. As compute becomes more expensive and competition gets tougher, smaller AI labs and startups will struggle. The survivors will probably be the ones with the deepest pockets, companies with existing revenue streams like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, or companies willing to monetize infrastructure like xAI is doing. It's starting to look like the winners won't be decided by who has the best AI, but by who can afford the longest game. So how do you read a filing like this and understand what it's really telling you? First, look for what companies are admitting versus what they are hiding. The fact that xAI publicly disclosed the Anthropic deal means they're not trying to hide it. It's strategically important to them. It proves they're not just burning money on internal R&D, they're building real infrastructure they can rent out. That's a strength, not a weakness. Second, follow the money flow. xAI is losing $2.4 billion on operations, but they're bringing in $1.25 billion per month from Anthropic. Do the math. If they have similar deals elsewhere, or if they lock in more customers, that loss shrinks. The filing shows the foundation for profitability, even if they haven't reached it yet. Third, pay attention to the timeline. This deal runs through May 2029. That's a committed revenue stream for nearly 3 years. In a fast-moving industry. That's a massive advantage. It means xAI has stability while they figure out their actual products. Finally, remember that filings like this are snapshots in time. Q1 2026 numbers might look different by Q4, but the strategy is clear. xAI is building infrastructure and monetizing it immediately, creating a new business model in AI. That's how you distinguish between companies that are just burning cash and companies that are actually building something sustainable. Here's the thing that makes all of this matter. We are living in an era where the future of intelligence, artificial, technological, everything is being shaped by money and compute, not just by clever ideas. The smartest researchers in the world aren't enough. You need billions of dollars and massive amounts of GPU power. And when that's the game, something changes. Companies start renting infrastructure to competitors instead of just trying to beat them. Profit becomes less important than survival, and the industry looks less like a competition and more like a carefully balanced ecosystem where everyone depends on everyone else. The xAI and Anthropic deal is a window into that world. It shows us that even though these companies are fighting for dominance, they're also interdependent. xAI needs revenue to offset their losses. Anthropic needs compute without building it themselves. They found a solution that works for both, at least for now. And that solution is worth $15 billion a year. So what should you watch going forward? Keep an eye on whether more of these infrastructure sharing deals emerge. Watch if Elon's power and compute strategy actually gives xAI an advantage in AI development. And ask yourself this, in an industry where rivals help each other survive, who's actually winning? The answer might be whoever can balance the paradox best, burning money today to own the infrastructure of tomorrow. That's the real story here.